short rotation plantations for combined biomass production and treatment of wastewater and sewage sludge.
The interest of willows started from the beginning in the 60s, because at that time foresters in Sweden believe that in the 90s there will be a shortage of wood for paper in Sweden. So scientists at that time start to look at other species than spruce and pine and birch. But when they were doing this, the energy crisis started in 73 and 76, I think it was. And then the people start to think, oh my God, we can use this for heating houses also. And when this high production of wood, it will be interesting to grow this willows for replacing oil, because this is a renewable energy. They are growing and we can harvest it, and they are growing and we can harvest it.
BioPros, a European Union-funded project which commenced in 2005, is focused on the safe application of wastewater and sewage sludge in short rotation plantations, or SRPs. The project is based on previous experience from Sweden, the UK, Estonia and Poland. At present, 25 partners from 11 European countries form part of this collaborative research project. The partners include research and development institutions, small and medium enterprises and associations of producers. Research studies are being conducted, and there have been many working meetings and field experience exchanges. Wastewater is produced in large amounts by households and industry and must be treated correctly. After pre-treatment, both wastewater and sewage sludge can be reused for irrigation and fertilization in SRPs. The harvested biomass, primarily wood chips, will be used for bioenergy generation of heat and power, which will ultimately be returned to households and industries for their use. The focus was laid on SRP with willows and poplars because these are the two most common trees in Europe for woody biomass production with short rotation cycles. So farmers in southern Europe grow more poplar, and in central and northern Europe willow is predominant. There is a very wide choice of species and clones of these tree types. They differ in shape, growth habits, and climate and soil requirements, and hence there is potential for growth of willows or poplars in virtually all environments. Sometimes farmers are encouraged to plant 4 to 8 clones in a plantation in order to decrease the infection risks. For example, there is information available to suggest that in the mixed clone SRPs, the resistance of willows to the most common pathogen, leaf rust, is higher than in monoclonal stands. On the other hand, the clones may differ in many ways. The plantation of mixed clones can be problematic for harvesting, and one should consider the planting of different material with the same amount of clones in separate rows or plots. Therefore, the farmer should evaluate the probability of various risks before planting. The cuttings are usually produced in plant nurseries between December and March before the growing period. For different planting machinery, the cuttings may be pre-cut to between 15 to 25 centimeter long sticks. Additional treatment of the top area of the cutting with a special transpiration protective chemical may also be performed. Planting should be carried out in spring after the last weed control and soil preparation, when the temperature is above 5 degrees Celsius, which is necessary to enable the cuttings to start growing. Earlier planting is suggested if possible, in order to take advantage of moisture in the soil after snow melting, for example. The most typical SRP planting scheme today is in double rows at a distance of 75 centimeters and 1.5 meters between the rows. The distance between the plants within the rows is variable, depending on different factors.
This is the step planter, which was developed in Sweden for the automatic planting of short rotation coppice willow. It plants two double rows, 4 rows with the double rows 70 centimeters apart and 1.5 meters between the double rows. What we plant is a section of last year's material, 1 year old material. The machine will take the cutting rod in and will make a cutting of approximately 7 or 8 inches, which will be inserted into the ground. The operator simply takes the cutting stick and drops it into the planting head, and the planting head will take it in and automatically make the cuttings and put them into the ground.
Both poplars and willows are perennial plants with quite poor above-ground growth during the initial growing period. Their planting density in field is much lower than that of cereals, so much more attention should be paid to weed control before planting, particularly if wastewater or sewage sludge is planned to be used afterwards. If weed control has been successful during the first 2 growing periods, the canopy closure will suppress the less shade-tolerant weeds. Poplars and willows are susceptible hosts to a wide range of different pests like fungal pathogens, leaf-eating insects, and, in a minor way, viruses. However, losses caused by pests on commercial plantations are not significant, and chemical control measures are not recommended. Willow and poplar are perennial crops. They are able to resprout very quickly in the early spring after winter harvest. Their growth rate under favorable conditions is considerably high. It is difficult to state the annual production of biomass because it depends on many factors, much the same as other agricultural crops. In Sweden, where willow has been growing for 2 decades, annual yields of 12 to 15 tons of oven-dried biomass are considered high and profitable. In Northern Europe, native clones of willow are usually frost-resistant, whereas some introduced genotypes which show early growth in the spring can be frost-susceptible. The growth rate of willow can be considerably high. The rate depends on many factors, among them genotype, age of stool, and weather conditions play a crucial role. Residues from local population centers, in the form of wastewater and sewage sludge from municipal wastewater treatment plants, can be applied for short rotation plantations fertilization. Besides increasing biomass growth, the recycling of nutrients and the reduction of pollution in adjacent water bodies is achieved. As a non-food, non-fodder agricultural crop, short rotation plantations do not impose direct risks of heavy metal entrance into the food chain. Sanitary and odor problems are also not an issue, since sludge and wastewater pre-treatment prevents such problems. Therefore, finding an acceptable and sustainable way of its utilization is absolutely essential for maintaining high environmental standards. One such method which can be applied is sewage sludge application to non-food, non-fodder crops, among them to SRP grown for energy.
Jest to metoda nie tylko atrakcyjna pod względem ekologicznym, jest to również metoda, która przynosi wymierne efekty ekonomiczne. Ten sposób zagospodarowania osadów spowodował, że oczyszczalnia ścieków i spółka wodno-ściekowa przez ostatnie 2 lata zaoszczędziła ponad 2 miliony złotych tylko z tytułu kosztów składowania tych odpadów na wysypisku.
Pre-treated sewage sludge contains high amounts of phosphorus, some organic nitrogen, but very little potassium. Therefore, for soils with nitrogen and potassium deficiency, additional fertilization is recommended. The profitability of sewage sludge application depends to a great extent on the distance between the sewage treatment plant and the SRP. In the UK, the application of sewage sludge is performed by injection and immediate covering by the soil. This method of sludge application eliminates any potential odor problems and facilitates the application of sewage sludge on short rotation plantations when regrowth starts in the spring. This method is also very cost-effective. Pre-treated wastewaters can be used to irrigate SRPs as a cost-effective and environmentally friendly method, as well as resulting in profitability for sewage treatment plants and landowners. In the Swedish city of Bromölla, pre-treated wastewater is pumped to the willow short rotation plantation.
Here we have the area of the forest we are watering. And this is the section was watering right now. And the valves was opened. And we have 8 different valves here. And the pipes.
The sewage treatment plant treats this plantation as a step in the wastewater purification process, instead of the costly installation of phosphorus precipitation and denitrification.
As a mayor of the municipality of Enköping, I'm very proud that we have a very sustainable environment for the future. We have a good cooperation with the farmers all around. They produce good, equal goods for us, no fossils in the future, and it's very, very important for us that we can cooperate together with the inhabitants and the farmers and the municipality and me as a mayor.
The Swedish city of Enköping is heated in winter by a central heating plant where only wood biomass is burnt. The plant also produces power at the maximum output of 6 megawatts and hot water for households. Close to the plant, there is a water treatment plant treating municipal wastewater. Also near the heating plant is a 76-hectare plantation of short rotation willow, which is irrigated with water from dewatering sewage sludge, a supernatant which is stored in ponds during the winter period and used from May to September after dilution with treated wastewater using a drip pipe system. In Spain, poplar has been grown for pulp for many decades. The new direction of poplar biomass application in this country will be energy generation. Spanish poplar grower Mr. Antonio Ramos Fernandez has started a project with wastewater irrigation of poplar grown for energy. In the plantation, wastewaters are applied in a very sophisticated way.
El sistema de riego es por gotero, vienen por las tuberías y en cada uno de los goteros la particularidad que tiene es que se puede poner, este gotero se enchufa al... Este tubo se enchufa al gotero y se puede poner en distintas posiciones para llegar a los distintos chopos que hay en cada uno de ellos.
Biopros involves not only implementation and dissemination, but within the framework of this project, research work is also carried out.
So now we're standing in our lysimeter station where we are testing the application of wastewater and landfill leachate and other types of polluted waters on willows and poplars. And we are looking at the treatment efficiency and the effect on the plants, on growth, for example. And we take samples of the drainage water down in the basement there, so we could estimate the efficiency quite good with high accuracy. So the lysimeters are approximately 1.2 meters deep from here and down to this level. And here we collect all the drainage water from the lysimeters so we can take samples. And the lysimeters contain clay soil or sand soil from arable fields. So here we take the samples of the water and we send them to the laboratory for analysis.
The Swedish Agricultural University in Uppsala collaborates with the University of Warmińsko-Mazurski in Olsztyn and the Estonian Agricultural University in analyzing the contents of nitrogen and phosphorus and other drainage water parameters, among other activities.
Sewage sludge application on silex fields in Sweden is a common practice. Sludge contains heavy metals, which is the main concern after such applications. We at SLU do research on the implications of heavy metals after such practices, and we have found out that silex is very capable of taking up certain heavy metals as cadmium, which is one of the main concerns in Sweden, in the rate of 10 grams per hectare and year. Our research results, both from field experiments but also lysimeter experiments, lab experiments, indicated that the amount of nutrients that is being leached, and namely and therefore the problems from such applications are minimal.
Mamy tutaj las posadzony 10 lat temu. Przyrost jest jak na drzewa bardzo ładny, natomiast ilość biomasy z tego jest po tylu latach w sumie mizerna. Natomiast tutaj po drugiej stronie jest jednoroczny odrost wierzby, który daje dużą biomasę, duży przyrost biomasy z hektara.
The winter period when foliage falls is the best time for harvesting short rotation plantations. It is also a good time for producing cuttings for further propagation of willows and poplar. On small plantations in countries where labor is not very expensive, it is possible to carry out manual harvesting using various hand tools. Wood is chipped after a longer period of natural drying, which improves the quality of biomass as a fuel. On larger plantations, manual harvesting cannot be done effectively. Therefore, one-stage harvesting is performed using a special combine harvester, which is able to cut the plants and chip the biomass in the field. Combine harvesters for maize with specially designed heads are used for this purpose. Harvesters are usually owned by contractors. Therefore, the area for harvest should be larger than 5 hectares, and in this case, the infrastructure for biomass must be taken into consideration because the storage of chipped biomass leads to its deterioration due to microbial processes. Utilization of renewable sources of energy brings a lot of benefits for the environment, the economy, and society. These benefits are appreciated by end users of energy, and, for example, can be seen on a small scale in heating family homes, on a medium scale in public buildings, and on a large scale in terms of heating an entire city, for example, Enköping in central Sweden. For heating a home in a city in northern Europe, where winters can be long and very severe, as well as for producing hot water for a 4-person family all year round, no fossil fuel is needed. This modern boiler is automatically fed with dry willow chips. All the owner has to do is fill the hopper twice a week in winter and once every 2 weeks during the rest of the year.
Tęczowy dom jest domem stałego pobytu dla 110 dzieci i młodzieży niepełnosprawnych, intelektualnie, ze sprzężonymi niepełnosprawnościami fizycznymi również. Dom, który funkcjonuje na ponad 8000 m2 powierzchni użytkowej. Wiadomo, że ogrzewanie jest bardzo istotną częścią budżetu domu. Zdecydowaliśmy się na wybór energii słonecznej, zamontowano kolektory słoneczne. Drugim takim podstawowym źródłem energii stała się biomasa. 60 hektarów ziemi, które należy do zgromadzenia, zainspirowały nas, żeby tam właśnie na tej ziemi posadzić wierzbę energetyczną. Na 10 prawie hektarach już udało nam się to zrobić, a jest to jednocześnie całoroczny warsztat pracy dla naszych mieszkańców. Przez cały rok tej pracy jest dość i traktują ją jako wyróżnienie, jako swój taki awans życiowy.
The willow is a very important fuel for me because I produce electricity and heat from bioenergy. And the willow is a very good fuel because it has this even particle size. When it is harvested, it's chipped directly and chipped down to my power station. And maybe it has 20 or 30 millimeters of size. And the size is very evenly distributed. So salix is a good fuel compared to other fuels that I burn. I burn other wood chips, sawdust and bark. The energy content of salix, of willow, is approximately the same as other bioenergy, depending only on the moisture content, the water content in the willow. And the willow water content, when it is harvested in the winter period, is approximately 50%. And that is nearly the same as the other fuels that I am burning, the other bioenergy I'm burning. So I believe that willow is a very important fuel for the future, since the neighborhood is mostly farming land around this combined heat and power station.
To achieve the European Union's objectives concerning renewable energies, Until 2010, 12% of EU's gross domestic energy consumption has to be covered by renewable energy sources such as wind and solar energy, hydraulic power, geothermals and biomass. Short rotation plantations have a potential to serve as a multifunctional system not only for renewable biomass production, but also as an alternative treatment system for pre-treated wastewater and sewage sludge. This potential results from the tree's natural high demand for water and nutrients that under normal conditions must be covered by irrigation with fresh water and mineral fertilizer. In BioPros, studies have been performed on the environmental and hygienic safety of reusing wastewater and sewage sludge in short rotation plantations. The results are promising and were used to develop guidelines and standards for the safe and efficient reuse of these residues in SRP. In general, the BioPros project showed that if suitable wastewater and sewage sludge are available in a short distance to the short rotation plantation, the potential for reusing these residues depends mainly on the following aspects: the overall legal feasibility, public acceptance, suitable local climate and soil conditions, environmental and hygienic impacts, and existing markets for woody biomass. To sum it up, the reuse approach in SRP supports local recycling of valuable nutrients. It reduces the demand for fresh water for irrigation when water is already scarce, and it increases the efficiency in renewable biomass production. Therefore, it is an interesting approach with multiple benefits for the farmers, but also for the environment and for society.